Welcome to Board Gems. In this video, I'll be comparing two editions of Michael Schacht's game. Well, it was originally called Kardinal König das Kartenspiel, or the Cardinal and King card game. Cardinal and King is best known in English as Web of Power. There was never a big retail edition of that, but I will cover two retail editions that came later. The first is from Ravensburger in 2002, 2003, something like that, part of their Fun for Two line, named Richelieu. On the right, a recent, I think 2018 edition from ThunderGryph called Spirits of the Forest. It literally has a forest spirit theme. It's right there in the name. It's got a couple stickers on it because I borrowed it from the restaurant. You can see the new edition is smaller than the old, even though the new one supports 4 players and the old one just 2. The Fun for Two line from Ravensburger was a standard box size, and so this box is actually a little bit bigger than it needed to be. You can't tell from this photo, but Spirits of the Forest is actually very slightly thinner as well. On the backs of the boxes, the Ravensburger edition was multilingual with 5 different languages, which doesn't leave much room for an illustration since there's also a ton of data up here, which, except for, the standard player count, time length, etc., but all this other stuff like how much luck is in the game, I don't know that people actually use it all that much, but at least it sort of shows a gameplay state. Whereas Spirits of the Forest, also multilingual, just 3 languages, it just shows a handful of components there on the bottom. I prefer it when it shows a board game state. Maybe they thought the grid was a little too boring looking. Richelieu has a multilingual rulebook, and English is, I guess I'm spoiled because usually English is in the front, but not for Ravensburger games. It's like the 4th or 5th one, and so sometimes it's hard to find. It's mostly wall of text. It's fine, except I tend to forget rules when I learn it from this book. Like, it's not very obvious to me, some of the rules, and they're easy to forget or easy to miss when you're just scanning. The ThunderGryph rulebook is very thin paged, and it feels like it's just like a color printout. It doesn't feel professional in any way, but I mean, the colors are really sharp. The Richelieu one was black and white, but this one is full color. I find it a little bit easier to learn the rulebook from this because there are more diagrams. Also includes a solo mode, which, I'm not a solo game player, but still I find it's pretty bad even by solo game standards. Inside the boxes, the plastic insert for Richelieu, so it's got these little slots in the middle that you can put the cardboard tokens in, but they stick up quite far from the plastic insert. If you were to have the plastic insert lay flush with the box lid by sticking a bunch of cardboard frames, from the punch outs underneath, that works, but then there's no room for these cardboard tokens to stick up. If you leave enough space for the cardboard tokens to stick up in their slots, then that leaves too much space for the larger tiles and they will inevitably slide all around. So I actually don't use these slots. I just put them in a little plastic baggie and put them in one of the 4 wells, which is exactly what you do in the ThunderGryph version. There are 4 wells, 3 of which are connected. And in these wells, ideally you'd put the tiles, and there's little gaps for your fingers to get at the tiles and get them out. The 4th well is not connected. It doesn't have those gaps for your fingers. So ideally you just put the tokens in those, but there are too many tiles, and they'll stick up out of the wells and slide around if you try to fit them in 3 wells. So inevitably you got to put some of them in the 4th well and the tokens on top. Plenty of room, but then it's hard to get those tiles out. Here are the cardboard tokens. The round ones are ones that go face down on the tiles, and if you claim a tile, you get to take the little cardboard token and peek at it, and it's a little bonus thing for you to have later, usually for scoring. At the bottom tokens, there's 3 of each, so just the light and dark player for Richelieu, and it uses these plastic gems as reserve markers in the ThunderGryph version. I got a couple of complaints about ThunderGryph, and it relates to both the round tokens and the gems. Let's start with the round tokens. So except for the 2 pluses, and then there's 3 that also were in kind of this weird, they have like an octagon shape and they're like black and white basically. Those ones are fine. The other ones show these icons. And if you get one of these tokens, like, okay, that's an extra point of, I guess you'd call it influence. in that suit. The problem is that these icons could honestly be more iconic. For some of them, it's not obvious where on the icon is the top and which is the bottom, which means matching them up with the same icons on the tiles is much more of a pain in the butt than it should be. The colors on the cardboard tokens are only very faint, not strong enough to use the colors as a differentiator. So that's complaint 1. I'll get to complaint 2 in the next slide, but let me talk about these tiles first. These tiles are pretty much the same size. One thing to note actually, in the Richelieu edition, I have seen 2 different versions of this game, this Ravensburger game, and one of them had cardboard tiles, this one, and the other one had cards. Otherwise, the boxes were identical. So if you were to find this used, I'm not sure what you're going to get, tiles or cards. I find the icons stand out well enough in the old Richelieu game. Certainly I could find some people finding it a little bit plain and abstract, but the new one's kind of plain and abstract too. What is the forest spirit theme? How does that come through, really? I like in the old tiles that they have the French provincial names on them. Just makes it easier to score, like now we're scoring Bourbon, and now we're scoring Provence. Whereas in the ThunderGryph version, let's score the brown blobs, not these brown blobs, the other brown blobs, the sixes, but not the red sixes, the brown blob sixes. Let's put some of these reserve markers and the cardboard tokens on the tiles, which is closer to a gameplay state. And now you can find out about my other complaint about the ThunderGryph edition, which is these gems. This is a problem, and it's a problem that comes up again and again. I most recently discovered that the new edition of Orango, Nyakuza, from Simon, has the exact same problem. You have player tokens that are clear plastic in the player colors. Those look really nice if the background they're placed on is a consistent color. Here, you have clear plastic tokens in the player colors, but they are placed on different colored backgrounds, which changes the colors slightly as it's perceived. So this token here is green, but it's awfully close to the yellow, isn't it? Like if you had them side by side, they were both on the same tile, yes, you could tell one is green and one is yellow, but that's not how the game works. Each tile can only have one token. There might be a yellow token next to it, but it would be on a different colored tile very often. Just a dumb little miss. At least with the old edition, they weren't clear, they were solid cardboard. So you just simply don't have that problem. Finally, ThunderGryph edition comes with a solo mode, which I have played once, and I am not a solo mode fan, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I thought it was pretty bad. But this is not a review, is it? So this board that you see on the left is a little extra board that comes with the ThunderGryph edition that allows for solo play. Some of those round markers you saw earlier get placed on this board. The one closest to you is to your benefit, and the other two above, which start face down, will go to your virtual opponent and are revealed over the course of the game. Anyway, so that's a little solo board that's included in the game. To put something useful on the back, they put a little scoreboard that you can use the gems to calculate your score and move them along the scoreboard, just as good as anything else. If you don't use this, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pen, which is what I have to do with Richelieu. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for a future video in which I talk about these games in more detail. These older games don't stop being good. You can see that because they still come up with newer versions, don't they? All right, take care.